Joining us right now to talk about the recovery in the housing market is Margaret Kelly, the CEO of REMAX. Margaret, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We know that things are getting better, but we've also been watching rates tick higher, steadily, but ticking higher. You're now looking at the 10-year sitting right around 3%. What does this mean in terms of mortgage rates, and how does that impact the market?
Well, obviously, mortgage rates will impact housing a bit, but I think we have to keep it in perspective. We are still at 50-year lows. Mortgage rates right now are around 4%. I remember I bought my first home in 1982 at 14.5%, and I was thrilled to be able to get that. So the American people really adapt to the market that we're in, and if rates go up slightly, they'll be able to adapt to it.
You know, I understand completely what you mean from the historic perspective, but I also remember earlier this year when rates rose because of what the Fed was talking about at that point, we did see a chilling effect on housing sales. What have you seen, let's just say, this week?
Well, that was the Bernanke saying, okay, we may start to taper. The fact is, now we know the taper is beginning. Now we can deal with that. Obviously, the market didn't get impacted too badly. But what's happening right now in housing is...
The Fed panicked. The Fed panicked because rates went up so quickly that they talked things back rather rapidly. Now we're looking at rates that are higher than they were there.
They are, but the Fed also put in the caveat that they can adjust the taper as they go forward, meaning they could increase it or they could decrease it also. So I think there's a little bit of leeway there. But the reality is we know the taper was going to start sooner or later, and January makes sense. What it tells me is the economy is recovering and that there is confidence in it. In fact, the new home starts that went up 22% this week, to me says builders are very confident in the housing recovery and in the economy. Otherwise, you wouldn't see starts that high.
Okay, so what are you seeing just in terms of consumers and how they feel about either selling houses or buying houses at this point?
We're seeing things are still positive. Housing transactions went down about 4% this month. But what that tells me is we're getting back into a normal seasonal market in the housing industry. We haven't seen that for quite some time. In fact, for 28 months in a row, year over year, the number of transactions increased. This is the first time in 28 months that the transactions actually went down a bit. What that says is we're getting back into a normal seasonal market where we slow in the winter and then we increase again in the spring.
Margaret, you're public now. Mazel tov. It's fun, isn't it? And you're huge. You've always been huge. But now I feel like we should ask you a little bit about your business model, because there is actually a retail brokerage cloud, isn't there? The MLS system where all these listings are on the internet. You can see them, you can touch them. And yet brokerage rate seems to stay at 5% of the value of a house. Do you see that holding up, or is eventually the cloud going to actually make it down to the lady with the sign and the lawn, and this gets a little more of a liquid, lower price market?
Well, first of all, thank you. We're thrilled with the IPO, and REMAX has been around for 40 years, and we're in nearly 100 different countries, so we're thrilled to be public now. But, you know, what we see is that a lot of the internet websites actually have replaced newspapers and classified ads and real estate ads. It is an opportunity for buyers and sellers to go out, search the web, see what properties are out there. But nobody's going to click PayPal and say, I'm going to buy this house off the internet. What they're going to do is go to a real estate professional who actually is that knowledge broker to be able to help them navigate what happens in the real estate transaction. You know, you may see a beautiful home on a website, but you don't know that 2 miles away is a dump. And that's where a real estate professional really assists the buyer and the seller to get through this transaction.
That settles it.
There you go.